Everyone says, save money, but is that outdated advice? Hey, Frank Thomas here from Wealth Generation Strategies, and today we're going to be talking about why should you bother saving? Isn't this an old idea that its time has just passed? Is there a better way to become wealthy, or at least financially safe? Today I hope to answer that question. And by doing that, I'm going to be looking at this from 6 distinct contrarian points of view. I want to challenge this whole idea of savings and possibly different ways of thinking to overcome each point. So let's start out with the first one here. And I've heard this one. Well, inflation just destroys savings anyhow. I know I've been saving in the bank for years, but with the bank giving me less than 1 or 2% interest, it's pretty boring. And worse, I need more money today than I did yesterday to buy the same things today that I could have bought yesterday. So why bother saving? Why not just buy what I wanted? Very true. I'm not going to even dispute that. What this really means, though, is we need to find a better way to invest our money. Banks are not going to cut it. I have an account which I use for a temporary holding, and the best I can get is 3%. And still, it's barely keeping up with inflation. But we want to make money on our money, and there is better ways to learn how to invest. And this will require us to learn those new ways. There's other markets that will provide us with a much better rate of return. 7%, 10%, 15%, possibly even more. And you're not gambling. I'm not saying go to the ponies. That's not what I'm saying. And it just comes down to finding a better way. And yes, it could be a little scary, could be a little freaky. My recommendation is just to start investigating and looking at different places where you can put your money and invest. Now, not all things are going to be good investments, but with experience, you'll find those good investments. Number 2. Emergency funds are a luxury for the rich. I've heard this in many different ways. Oh yeah, I'd have an emergency fund, but I can't save. Like saving 3 to 6 months of expenses is impossible if you just haven't got any extra money today. Well, consider what an emergency fund provides you. When something expensive happens, now you have to use money that you don't have to cover the problem. And you also have all the stress that goes with it. So you collect debt and you collect stress. When I tell you having an emergency fund of any size can make a huge difference just in your mental well-being, I'm not lying to you. And also, don't try to save the whole amount today. Don't try to save 3 months today. It's impossible. Try to save $200 that you're no longer going to touch unless you have a drop dead emergency. Now, grow that 200 a little bit each payday, and it will grow. Regardless of what you put into it, it will grow, even if it just goes into a simple old savings account. Now, once you've saved more in the emergency fund, you now have the ability to cover when Murphy comes to visit, and that is so stress relieving. You might still say, oh, it's impossible. This is impossible to do. Let me relay a true story. My mother, she was able to save by just nickeling and diming about $5,000 in 1975. Now, in 2025 money, that works out to be almost $30,000 in same value. Now, realize that she saved this money 1 penny at a time. It took her a few years, but she was able to do it. If she could do that, you can too. In her case, unfortunately, it wasn't an emergency fund. It was a fund to allow her to buy a brand new vehicle. It wasn't the most exciting vehicle, but it was brand new. It was hers 100%, and it made her feel independent. And maybe that's worth it. But my point here is, if she could do it, I could do it, you can do it too. So start saving a little bit here, a little bit there. Number 3. Well, I could die tomorrow. Or the other side of the coin I hear is, I'm young and I can just wait. You know something? Like I just said, these are 2 sides of the same coin. It's called procrastination. I have had people who are turning 60 tell me, well, why should I even bother? I'm probably going to die tomorrow anyhow. That is such a fatalistic attitude. What happens if you live to 95 years old? That's 35 years without income if you retire, and it could be a really sucky 35 years. I remember watching my wife's grandmother. She had to live on the good graces of everybody around her, all her children, and it wasn't a great time for her. And she spent 20 years living off the good graces of everybody else. It's really bad to be in that situation. Here's the other side of this coin. I'm only 22. Why should I bother saving when I got lots of time? Now is the time to have fun. Either way, saving just doesn't happen. And this distresses me because really and truthfully, the 20-something is more impacted by this. But let me hold off on that. I would have to also say, into both camps, you're missing out on one of the biggest points, and that is time. Time to invest in. That's huge. Now back to those 20-somethings who are impacted more by this, but even the older ones can be impacted too. Like I said earlier, if you're only 60 and you don't start saving, you could have another 35 years of living ahead of you. Why live it in poverty? Time, when investing properly, is the magic ingredient that creates tremendous wealth. If a 20-year-old started to invest $100 per month and did it for 40 years, earning about a 7% return, now this is all very modest. This is doable by anybody. This will be worth over $260,000 when this person turns 60. Hey, at that point in time, $260,000 might not be enough to retire on, but you get my point. As time goes on, they could ramp that up and add to it. And if they've got 40 years and they get 10% and they start putting $500 every 2 weeks into it, it grows very, very fast. Just think about it. You want to start saving regardless of how old you are if you're not saving today. Start saving even a couple bucks. It's better than not saving anything at all. I promise you, you will thank me one day for it. Well, one thing I can't wait any longer is for you to subscribe. I got tons of videos all relating to creating wealth in your life, and I'd love it if you took some time and watched a few. But the first step is to subscribe, and I'll start showing up in your recommended feeds. By the way, thanks if you do. Number 4, debt is the real wealth strategy. Oh my goodness, there are so many people who are citing debt as a wealth strategy, and it's not. I would have to say, unless you got the fortitude for it, taking debt when buying real estate is probably the only way you can do this. And it's got to be real estate that you're going to be renting out and continue to invest on. But this is still a tough struggle. You don't know if you're going to be up. You don't know if you're going to be down. But needless to say, these stories proliferate. I remember some Kool-Aid when I was in my 30s that said, put a HELOC on your house and invest the difference. Well, you know something? What happened was I put a HELOC on my house. I started to invest and I stopped. And all of a sudden I started going to bills. With a HELOC, you can just pay the interest and you never pay the house down. So many years later, when I got rid of the house 18 years later, I still owed the principal amount, if not more. It would have been so much nicer if I would have had only maybe $50,000 or $20,000 worth of debt on that house by that time. Look at all that extra income or that extra buying power it would have had in an investment or into a new property at that point in time. But I do want to say that there is some truth in this strategy if you can come up with less than 25% of the investment, but generate growth on the whole 100%, and that's their point. But remember, there is a cost of purchasing the property or equity up front, and sometimes those costs are very high, and you also have the running costs and concerns going down the road. And you can also go broke with this strategy because you're still using debt. Debt is other people's money, and you have to pay that debt with interest one way or another, so just remember that. Personally, I prefer to find better returns from vehicles that allow me to leverage my savings and not debt. Sure, it might take me a little bit longer, but it's all mine to gain or to lose. This also provides me with the ability to be very diversified. I haven't got all my money chunked into one property. I've got that same amount of money chunked into 20 different stocks, let's say. which is another way to protect your portfolio against losses. So another good reason, I think, for that. But like I said, it's not for me, might be for you, but think about it. Number 5, the system isn't built for savers. Oh, I'm hearing in 2025, am I ever hearing this one in one form or another? It's impossible to save. How do I buy a house? Can't afford the rent, etc., etc., etc. Legitimate concerns. I'm not denying that. But how can I save if the system just doesn't leave me with extra cash in the first place, basically? Well, let's split this one into 2 possible camps. First, you've created a budget, so you know where everything is going when it comes to your bills and your money, and you're only paying for what you really, really need to survive. This is about survival, not thriving. If you're in this camp and you cannot shave your expenses any further, then you might need to find some way to earn more so you can save. I'm a real big go-getter when it comes to getting more education, and you don't need to go get a degree. Sometimes just taking a course on Excel or taking a course on another piece of software or another piece of your trade or whatever it is can raise your ability to make a little bit more. And now you can start to save as long as you don't fall into the second camp. This is when your expenses creep up with your earnings. It's easy to have expenses that feel necessary but are not. For example, is your cell phone bill or your internet bill higher than it needs to be? I sat down and analyzed it. I was paying about $120 a month for internet, and I was getting sick and tired of paying so much for internet. Did I use it? Absolutely. And even a little bit sooner, I was paying about $140 a month for 2 cell phones every month. Again, do I need to pay that much? Absolutely not. Well, with the internet, I got it down to $62 a month. And that's $60 or so that I can now invest. And I still have internet services that do what I need. And when it comes to the cell bill, I got that down to about $83 or $84. So again, I'm saving another $40, $50 on my cell bill, and I still have a cell phone that works just fine. So examine your bills, and also do not allow your expenses to creep up with your earnings. This happens all the time, happens to all of us. I remember there was a time when I was earning about $30,000 to $40,000 a year, and I got a certification. Now there's more education, what it allowed me to do was to almost double my income. And it did. After a few months, I doubled my income, and we kept our expenses the same. We thought we were on it Club Med because the fact that we had all this extra money, and I saved it. I was able to save like $10,000, lickety split. It was just incredible because we were able to take literally half our wages and put them into a savings account and just put it away. So take these things to heart. Number 6, retirement is not possible. Well, let me tell you, retirement's not a pipe dream, and retirement is not optional. And one day it will be necessary. Your body is not going to be able to keep up with your need to make money one day. It's going to happen. I went through chemotherapy in my late 40s, early 50s, and I got just a glimpse of what it's like to be an old man because my body was so burned out because of the chemotherapy. I was so tired. I get sick on the drop of a dime. I could barely move, you name it. And I had somebody say to me, that's what it's like to be 80. And I went, oh, this is terrible. Well, it did institute me to make me want to exercise once I start getting better. But it also left me with a really good lesson that, like I said in the beginning here, that retirement isn't optional. One day you're going to have to retire. And honestly and truthfully, the idea of dropping dead one day at my job is one of my nightmares, and I need to avoid it at all costs. So even if you're 60 years old, put some money away. Even stashing away money on a monthly basis can give you some buffer at 65 or 70 if you started at 60. With diligence, I was able to put over $175,000 away in under 4 years. So could you put $100,000 away in 5 years? I think so. And if you were able to, and you got a return of 10%, that would give you a bit of extra income every year in the tune of about $10,000 a year without depleting the capital, or roughly $833 a month. And I will tell you something. I've heard many people who have retired and they have nothing. And they say to me, Matt, if I just had a couple extra $100, it would make all the difference in the world. This could be all your difference in the world. But if you saved $200,000, $500,000, you get my point. It doesn't take long before you have enough that you've got a wonderful buffer in place. So think about it. So let's wrap this one up. Is saving outdated advice in the end? I'm not too sure about it. Better question is saving right for you? It may take an adjustment in your habits and thinking, but I think anyone can learn to become a very healthy saver. I'll also say that you will thank yourself in the future if you do. What happens if you decide you just don't want to save? I don't want to listen to this. If you want more insight, I've got a video that's showing up that tries to answer that question of what happens if you don't save. Be sure to click on it and check it out. It's a little spooky, but I think you'll enjoy it. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll talk to you again at another time. Like I said earlier in the video, if you haven't subscribed, do so. And if you like this video, give it a like. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye for now.